So welcome, everyone from the PACE community. We have students, faculty, staff, alumni, and some outside visitors. So welcome. Thanks for coming. Thanks for your interest in entrepreneurship. I'd like to thank first the faculty that brought their classes. So when you hear your class, you could cheer. So well, first is my class, Management 216, Venture Initiation and Entrepreneurship. Okay. How about Dr. Claudia Green's Management 208, Travel and Tourism? All right. And we also have Dr. Niso Abaus, MBA 648 Managerial Finance class. Oh yeah, that's a good representation for a smaller class. Thank you. Also like to thank Elizabeth Jovanovska, the Associate Director of the Entrepreneurship Lab, and the staff. That's our graduate assistants, the Desert Fellows, the student assistants, and the interns for managing all the logistics, the name tags, the invites, the everything, the food. So a round for the staff that made all this happen. And of course our special guest speakers who you'll hear from shortly, Alex Shishel, the president and co-founder of Alice, and Dmitry Kaltunov, the CTO and co-founder of Alice. So there's no need to turn off your phones. You could use them, call if you want to tweet. The Entrepreneurship Lab is at PACE eLab. Just as a quick introduction, I'm Bruce Backenheimer. I'm a clinical professor in the management department, and I'm also the executive director of the Entrepreneurship Lab and a Lubin alum myself. An entrepreneur. I started a couple companies here and overseas, and I'm active in the broader New York City entrepreneurial ecosystem with organizations like the MIT Enterprise Forum, NYC EDC's Bio and Health Tech Lab, Disruptive Technologists, and a couple private companies. I'd also like to just mention a little bit about PACE's entrepreneurship program and the eLab. So our entrepreneurship program was formally established back in 1979, making it one of the earlier programs in the country. And we started events like the pitch contest in 2004. We're about to have, and I'm just going to shut off the jazz music in the background. Although it's nice, we'll put it back up. So we started as I said, the program formally established as a concentration in the management department in '79, the pitch contest in 2004, a business plan competition, a bunch of other events, and then the Entrepreneurship Lab, which if you haven't been to, it's just a block away at 163 William Street. We have a video of a little doggy, our mascot, going from One Pace Plaza over there to show you how to get there. So if he could figure out how to get there, you can. And it's on the third floor. It's a collaborative workspace designed to promote multidisciplinary problem solving, experiential learning, and the development of what we like to call an entrepreneurial mindset. So entrepreneurship is much more than just starting a business, right? It's a way of thinking and acting, of being able to recognize, analyze, and capture opportunities with the idea of being able to solve problems or provide benefits that create value. So whatever field you're in, I noticed in the Wall Street Journal, the CIA had an advertisement for entrepreneurs and professionals. So all kinds of people are looking for entrepreneurs. I like to think that I have an entrepreneurial mindset as a professor, and whether you're in government, in nonprofit, etc. That idea of being able to think and act entrepreneurial is something we're trying to promote. Obviously, starting a startup or working at a startup, or in a service provider, a law firm or an accounting firm, finance firm that provides services to startups is great as well. If you want to take a look, we have the website up. It's just elab.nyc. We use the top level domain NYC as opposed to pace.edu just for search engine optimization and ease of use, and again, connecting with the New York City broader entrepreneurial ecosystem. We have a bunch of competitions, a pitch contest, a business plan competition, a mobile app design contest, and hackathon, all different speaker events, roundtables, fireside chats, panel discussions, networking events like this. We have 3 endowed scholarships for entrepreneurship students. We ran a Veterans Entrepreneurship Boot Camp, a special proof of concept initiative to give funding to people to test their ideas. And we're still running the Israel Entrepreneurship Initiatives in its 4th year, where we appoint 6 Desert Fellows, and 1 gets a scholarship to go to do an apprenticeship in Israel, work with 2 Israeli startup companies, giving them kind of a home base in New York City. And lastly, on my promotion of our program, we have a number of academic programs, a minor in entrepreneurship, a concentration in entrepreneurship at the undergraduate level, and at the graduate level, an MS in entrepreneurship, and a concentration in entrepreneurial studies. And for upcoming events, if you look at the website, we have a panel discussion next month, November 2nd. And then in the spring semester, we have a roundtable in February, and the 14th annual pitch contest on April 19th. They're all on Thursday evenings. And on the website, there's tons and tons of information, but if you look at upcoming events, you could see all of them. Obviously, today's featured event is the networking event. But I encourage you to take a look. We also have a video resource of hundreds of original content videos of our past events and guest speakers. It's set up there, so I hope you take a look, come visit the lab, and find it a special and helpful resource. So for today, we never know how the networking is going to go. We had an idea to set up. We have 12 tables here. And what we did is pick 10 topics that I thought, or we thought would be, of particular interest to students based on pitches that they've done or ideas that they've presented in the past. So just to read those all quickly, like ed tech, health tech, fintech, those are educational technologies, health technologies, financial technologies, real estate, hotel and hospitality, fashion, photography and arts, news and media, entertainment and events, and social entrepreneurship. And then we have 2 other tables where if you have another idea, maybe gaming, Internet of Things, AI, food, whatever you like, we'll set those up. And what I'll do later on to get the networking going, and we have prizes for anyone who's willing to stand up and say something. If someone says, yeah, I'm working on an idea in fintech, the 15, 20-second pitch, go over there and just do, again, a way just to facilitate some networking around some core topics. But we also have the guest speakers. Is Dimitri here, Alex? Should we wait a little on that?
Or we can kick off.
We can kick off? All right, so we're really pleased to have a guest speaker. As I said, Alex is here, and a really a neat website. I'll let Alex talk about it. We're happy to demo it, to show it. But again, for networking, we just want to bring in some outside speakers, spark some ideas, be able to have you ask some questions, and I said then we're going to go into more student-to-student network. But without further ado, Alex, the co-founder and president. Alex.
Can you hear me? There's Dimitri. I'm so sorry as well, I know I'm in a suit and you're all expecting someone in tech. I'm not dressed up for you guys, I have a charity event afterwards. I'm normally much more comfortably dressed, so apologies. I would love a hoodie, no, okay. So we started Alice about 5 years ago, and the way we'll take today is I'll just give you a little bit of background on Alice and really open it up for questions, because so many of you are probably doing so many wonderful things, and so we can get a sense of who's in the room. Has anyone started a company? One? Anyone's thinking of starting a company?
Hi. You can't think about starting a company and build your hand like this. It's
Awesome.
gotta be.
All right, and the rest of you are in different classes and you've been invited here today, is that correct? Okay, so we've got a few entrepreneurs in the room, and the rest of you will learn about a bit more. So we started Alice about 5 years ago. We were 4 non-technical co-founders from Penn. We just graduated. We wanted to start something in the hotel space. We wanted to start a technology company, and not one of us knew how to code. And that is pretty much the recipe for being kicked out of every VC in the country. You would literally be laughed out the room. And we only really met Dimitri about 8 months into that journey. And everyone who wants to start a company wants to find their CTO, always want to find the CTO. We took a very different approach. We just started researching the industry and trying to figure out what are we trying to build. And when we started Alice, what we wanted to do was we wanted to build a guest application like Seamless Web that would allow you as a guest to order food and services from hundreds of hotels. At the time, Seamless Web was blowing up in New York. Uber, all the service on demand space was growing, and we thought, okay, hotels could really use this. Why don't you interact with hotels like that? Fast forward 5 years, and we've completely switched our focus to very much back-end. We now have built an operations platform, and our users are no longer guests. Our users are concierge, front desk, housekeeping, maintenance. We've built the industry's first operations platform that allows the whole hotel to communicate together. And we've gone ahead and we've raised about 40 million in funding. The team's about 70 strong. We're hiring another 60 people in the next 6 months. And we've really started hitting that inflection point of suddenly realizing a vision and building a product to fit there. And so that's where we were, that's where we are, and I thought we would give that context so that as we go through the rest of today, we can really talk about everything that got us there and all the questions that people will have on how do you raise money, how do you find your CTO, how do you know your CTO is not some creepy Russian, but the guy you actually might want to work with for the next 10 years.
I'm creepy Russian.
And really everything that's in between there.
Somewhat, yeah. Wow, you gotta get really close to this guy. I'm good now.
Okay.
We're ready.
So I'm Alex. I'm the president of Alice. Within the company, there are 3 co-founders. Justin, who looks after our revenue side and fundraising. Dimitri, who looks after all of our technology and product. And then I look after everything else, which is basically marketing, culture, hiring, growth, and our management team. You want to introduce yourself?
Hey, I'm just getting smart on what the Entrepreneurship Lab is, so now I know. Hi. So we met, this is 5 years ago, and I was thinking about doing a lot of different things, and 0 of those things were hospitality or hotel operations management. And then look at where we are today. So my background is in tech. We both went to the same university, and in coffee drinking, which is really important if you're going to be starting a company. So I was corporate for about 10 years. I worked in a bunch of finance. And while it was really challenging, I got to work with some brilliant people, it was just not an environment that fostered creativity, and I always wanted to make things. And so I passively started working on a startup project, working weekends, and eventually thought, well, how does this actually happen? And then I joined this entrepreneurial training program. It's probably similar to what you guys are experiencing here, and got to meet a bunch of founders, and realize that anyone can start a company. You just need to have a lot of grit and perseverance, and you have to be okay with a ton of failure. Does anyone know what the difference between a hobby and a part-time startup is? Because they look really, really similar. So I had a hobby that I called a startup for about a year. Every Saturday, I would get on a phone call with my friend who was studying for his PhD in UCSD, and we were going to build Google Map for the brain. It's some heavy stuff, right? So he had this technology he was working on, and I had the desire to do something that was different than what I was doing, so together we were starting talking about this thing, and about a year in, he calls me. It was like one of the most important calls in my professional career. He said, Dimitri, I'm going to tell you 2 things. Both of them happen to be that I went through this program called the Startup Leadership Program, and they taught me a lot about entrepreneurship. So the first thing I'm going to tell you is that we have to close our company today. It's like, okay. And the second thing I'm going to tell you is you should do the Startup Leadership Program to understand why. We had a glorious hobby. We were working on it for a year. We spoke for every Saturday for 2 or 3 hours to each other. Very different than what Alex was saying, because they were speaking to people that would buy the thing. But we were technology people. We were super interested in solving the problem. And so to us, we were building stuff, And then we would commit the most cardinal sin of all, which is we would talk to a few people that could be our clients, and they would tell us that what we were building was not important, and we would tell them that they're wrong. Like, the people that you build products for definitely know. Right? You're a student in a university. Imagine somebody who's not a student at a university comes up and tells you, listen, I'm going to tell you how to manage your class schedule in this completely new way. And they are like a brilliant astrophysicist in NASA right now. And they're like, look, you have to just change everything. And you're like, it's not really how I work with my classes. And they're like, no, I'm really smart. I'm going to change everything for you. Like, no, seriously, you don't go to university. I have no idea how it works right now. And those are the kinds of conversations that we kept having. We're just super pig-headed. We're like, oh, we're all so smart. We can figure it out. And the truth is, no. Like, the people that you build stuff for, A, don't care how you build it at all. They have a thing that they need to accomplish, and you need to help them accomplish that thing. If you accomplish that thing through a super highly complex technical solution, or through like 3 people who look super complex but do it all manually, the person on the other side literally doesn't care. And that's like the biggest thing that we have to learn. Like, when you start a company, a lot of times people start companies because they want to create things, and they just want to build really fun stuff. If you want to build really fun stuff, you should go work at Google or Facebook. If you want to build something valuable and meaningful, you should start a company, but those are not synonymous. Because a lot of times the stuff that's really fun and cool is actually a terrible idea for a startup, because a startup needs to be practical. And we totally didn't understand that. We just kind of kept going with this ethos of like, oh my God, Google Maps for the brain, you can navigate and find tumors and have directions, like, oh, it could be the greatest thing. And the neurosurgeons were like, what are you talking about? Like, we look at like CAT scans and try to find sicknesses. So the most important lesson that I got from there as a hobby is when the outcome of the thing that you're doing is excitement. When the currency with which you measure how successful your startup is how psyched you are after the call. Like, it's a hobby, it's an awesome hobby, but it is no different than learning how to knit, or learning Mandarin, or doing, karate, or whatever it is. It could be your hobby. Like, you could become the world's best chef. Like that, and doing a startup on the side where you don't actually try to sell anything to a specific person, they're functionally equivalent. And so the thing that these guys did that was different before we met is they actually went out and talked to a bunch of clients and took a pitch deck and drew some things and found like a really okay like consulting shop that was like half in the US, half in India, like had a terrible app built. But they put things together and they put it in front of people, and some people said, I'd pay for this maybe. And some people said no. They're like, well, what would you pay for? Maybe I'd pay for this other thing. And when we started talking, I saw the app that they basically got people to put together, and I saw that they spoke to 20 to 40 different people, and they had actual validation. And the biggest difference between what I was doing with what they were doing is I had an awesome hobby, and they wanted to make an awesome business. And the difference between an awesome hobby and an awesome business is, at a hobby, you think about how excited you are, and for a business, you think about how excited your customers will be.
So we met Dimitri after about 9 months of working on Alice. We'd spoken to a couple hundred hotels. And when we first met him, we loved him, not because he of that spiel there, but because he understood the difference between business and tech. And that's rare in a technologist, to understand what the difference between the business and the tech needs are. Because most people in tech, they just want to go build the next cool tech thing and keep jumping to the next thing. Whereas building technologies is a business approach. You try and build what's most efficient for your customers. And so when Justin came back from meeting Dimitri, he said to me, I just met our CTO. He just doesn't know yet. And we paid Dimitri a lot of money to meet with us for 5 hours a week. And that 5 hours turned into 40 hours, except we were only paying for 5. And after about 8 months, Dimitri turned to us and said, I have a wife and kids. I need to figure out what to do because I meet other clients. And we said, why don't you just leave everything else behind and join us full time? And from there, the 3 of us took the business forward, and it's been another 4 years since. And so at the end of the day, our idea was really nothing, because our idea was to build a guest app. And today we don't even build on our guest app. Everything is staff-based. But I have a ton of preset questions to help walk through how we started the company and where we got to today. And so I can go ahead and that, but instead, why don't I open up to the room first and say, do any of you have questions as you're thinking about us speaking or as you're thinking about what we've done that we can kick off the conversation with? Okay, well, I'll start the question flow and hopefully you guys will start entering into it. So, Dimitri, how do you start a company?
All right, so once you've decided what you want to build is a company, not a hobby, then you have to figure out which problem do you want to solve. Well, you can go a different way. You can say, which problem do I want to solve? Which people do I want to solve problems for? And the worst way to start a company is, which technology do I want to use? And that could be like VR, or chatbots, or blockchain. And it might sound really exciting, and you can maybe do that as a hobby, but like what I work with a thing called the Startup Leadership Program, the fast forward, the thing that my friend told me to join, I joined. It changed my life. It allowed me to leave corporate America and become an entrepreneur, start a consulting company, meet these guys, come together, and then all the way through it. And now I'm the director of the New York program. We have 200 alum in New York. We've raised over $200 million between 200 people. We've had 14 exits, and about 33% of our alumni base is still an active entrepreneur after 5 years, which, if you guys know the attrition rate, that's really good. So the way that you start a company is you get excited about something, and you build domain knowledge in the thing, right? You have to have something that you're really good at. And then you go and you find either a problem that you want to solve, irrespective of who you solve it for, or people that you want to solve problems for, irrespective of what problem you want to solve. That's really the only two ways that you can start something that will really kind of stick. Now, there are the exceptions, right? You can start a technology, like amazing company, but unless you have this brilliant, piercing idea, it's much better to just say, I have a problem that I want to solve, or people that I want to solve a problem for. And that might sound like the same thing, but it's actually wildly, wildly different. So we'll make some stuff up. Let's say that we're going to think about students now. We talked about scheduling, right? So let's say I want to solve the class scheduling problem. I want to start a company around that. Well, first thing I need to do is deeply, deeply understand class scheduling. And naturally, I'm a student, or you guys are students, I'm going to go talk to you guys. Now, what I might find out is a specific way for me to solve scheduling for classes is interesting to some students, but actually much more interesting to doctors. And I will leave the student market and go to the doctor's market, because the thing that I want to do is solve the scheduling problem. And this happens a lot. This is what people call a pivot, but it's really, you're just focusing in on the thing that you want to do. Or you could say, I want to solve problems for students. And you may come in saying, I want to solve your scheduling problems. And what you may find out is actually scheduling is not an issue, but selecting classes is an issue. So you're going to shift away from scheduling. Now, the worst thing you can do is do both, because then you're kind of stretched into multiple different places. In one day, you're like, well, I want to solve the scheduling problem. I'm going to learn all about scheduling from students. Oh no, I want to solve problems for students, and they want to do class selection, so I'm going to solve scheduling and selection. And now you're like trying to do two things at the same time, and with every day, your company becomes more and more complicated. So the best thing to do is to just commit. Like, and how do you know? Just think about doing that thing for the next 5 to 10 years, and are you excited? Like, I have a friend who started a really nicely functioning laundry business. He basically created Uber for laundry. Really smart guy, left his McKinsey job in order to do it, built the Uber app, like had customers all over New York, and like I look at him one day and he's like looks depressed. It's like, what's going on, man? It's like, you know what I didn't realize? That when I solved the laundry problem, I got to deal with laundromats and the people that clean laundry, and those people are awful.
So in short, having a theme is really important, but the way we really approached it in short, you start a company at night because ultimately you have an idea and everyone knows, says to me, do I need to leave my job to start this idea? And the answer is absolutely not. You know, we started at night and weekends. We worked for about 8 months, nights, weekends. I just started at a bank, my partners had just started at a bank, and you have to treat each step like an experiment. Right? So our first experiment was, we think there's a problem, does anyone agree? So we said, there's a problem, guess that we would like to solve, guests can't make requests of hotels using mobile. Does anyone agree? And we started going into hotels and say, do you agree with this? And eventually, and we got kicked out of a lot of hotels. I mean, we were 23, they were 100 years old as a hotel. We were asked when our boss would arrive, and that was the end of that meeting. I mean, we got kicked out a lot, but we just kept going and going. And eventually we found 2 hotels that said they'd build this with us. So first experiment done, we have 2 clients. They're not going to pay us, but launching the product will be enough to get 2 clients. Right? The next step we said is, okay, can we build a product? So to build a product, you need some money. So we had 2 hotels, we had 9 months of an idea, and so we went out and said, okay, can we raise some money? And we started pitching to friends and family. We want to build mobile, it's a big idea for hotels. We don't have a tech guy yet, but we have 2 hotels. So that's our customer base. So we were able to take as much of the risk out as possible, right? It would be better if we had a product, it would be better if they're using it, but as we couldn't get there yet, we raised $500,000 on the idea and on 2 hotels. And with that, we started meeting people like Dimitri.
But there was those 2 hotels, right? That's the big difference. And one of the things we realized, and you won't know the answer right away, but you should just keep thinking about it, is that we were here to solve problems for hotels. We weren't there to build a guest app. And when we were pitching originally, our entire pitch was, have you ever used Seamless Web? Do you guys know what Seamless Web is? Or like Grubhub, you can order from any restaurant. Like, wouldn't it be nice to have that as for hotels? Like, you know, you arrive and you want to order towels, or you want to get bell service or restaurant. Wouldn't it be nice to have all your services on a single app? And if we stuck to that, we would have been out of business right now. How do we know? Because we've spoken to 4 companies already that we were going to buy because they ran out of business doing that platform. And the reason that they went out of business is because that's not what the customers wanted. What the customers wanted was to have their problem solved. And when we got in there, we realized that the real problem, was the operations were awful in a hotel. And if we had an app that said, I would like to get a towel delivered, or I would like to get restaurant reservations, there was no way for somebody on the other side to receive it.
So some of you probably don't know what he's talking about, right? It's probably a little bit lost, but you get the passion at least. Right? That's what we had. We had an opportunity to have a passionate technical leader problem solve. We didn't come up to him like all of my friends, yeah.
You said you raised $500,000.
Yeah.
And you started with your friends and family.
Yeah.
Did all that money come from your friends and family? How did you get all the other revenue?
That's a great question. No, it didn't. So what we did is we knew we were about to pitch for money. So in New York City, there are loads of angel investment groups. One is called 37 Angels, one is called Archangels. These are wealthy individuals who get together once a month or once a quarter to listen to a lot of pitches and invest. And so we reached out to the angel groups and said, rather than pitching our company, can we come and do diligence on one of the companies you're going to invest in? So we basically said, can we sit at the other side of the table from the company that we were about to be? And they said yes, because it's free labor. And we went and spent 3 days doing diligence on a company they were thinking about investing in. And what that did is it allowed us to see all the questions we were about to be asked, and all the reasons why this investor group would not invest in our company. So we were able to look at, okay, shit, we haven't got vesting schedules, we haven't got this, we haven't got this. We fixed all those problems, and then we went back to the same groups and said, hey, can we pitch our company?
Also raised like 50 or 60 internally, right? Like the first raise, that's how you paid.
No, we paid $4,000 for that. So with that, we started raising from friends and family, from angel groups, and then we looked at our industry, and the rest of the money was actually relatively easy to get because we were out there pitching mobile at a time that mobile was really sexy. And we were pitching mobile to run your hotel. And the only people who really care about that are hotel owners. And hotel owners are used to investing up to $100 million to build a hotel. And here was this little app that would run the hotel, and we're asking for $50,000. So by finding people who were completely aligned with what we were trying to do, or had the best of intentions, liked the idea of mobile, and 50,000 was laughable when they just spent 100 million to build their hotel, we were able to get a lot more investment from that side of the community. So in some ways you have to find people who are directly involved, because no one knows who you are. Your family is one, your friends is another, and then you have to find the next layer out, which for us was the hotel ownership community. And that's what made up our first round. And then we closed it, the last 50,000 happened to come from the actual founders of Seamless Web. Because they were in our pitch. We're like, oh, well, we're pitching Seamless Web for hotels, so why don't we reach out to the founders of Seamless Web and say, hey, we're building Seamless Web for hotels, will you invest? And by that time, we already had a lot of money, 2 clients, and Dimitri getting on board, and so, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. We've done that ourselves, we can see that working, let's do it.
Like, you don't need to raise money right away. You don't need to do it full time. You shouldn't do it full time until you know that there's something to do. There's a ton of stuff that you can be doing as a part-time founder, just figuring it out. You can have a lot of meetings during the weekends, during the evenings, and just get to a place that you know who your clients will be. Find some people. I mean, if you have a job, well, I mean, you can go out to dinner, or you can take that money and hire yourself a developer. And just know that you are building something that you're going to throw away. The whole point is to just learn how to build something. If you've never built anything before, if you've never overseen how to build it, do that. But then when you go to your investor pitch, you're like, look, I built that. And they don't know, they're not looking at the code, but what they do know is that you went from I have an idea to I have a thing. And that distance is massive. Like, I know so many people that have had an idea for 10 years, but they can't get to a thing. And for various reasons. Some people just don't have the wherewithal. Some people keep like saying, oh, well, it could be different, it could be this, it could be that. Like, the best way is to just start, just do something. Get something out there, show it to people, it's gonna suck, you're gonna learn, and then you're gonna kind of keep going. And then when you go to the investor, the first thing they wanna say is, how do I distinguish you from a talker? There's a ton of talkers out there. So you need to prove to the investor on the first funding round, whether they're friends and family, or they're angels, or they're angel groups, is that you are a person that means business, and that you are somebody that will actually take their money and put it to actual use, not sit around and kind of just think.
You had a follow-on?
Yeah, when do you know that it's time to start hiring employees?
Great question. So, when you can afford to? Yeah.
And how much did you?
We, our first employee we put out, there was 3 of us working from a library in the Nomad Hotel, because our apartment was not as nice, and the library was really nice and it was in a hotel, so it fit with what we were trying to do. It didn't make us look too startup-y. So the library was our garage, and we put out an advert in a few different places for an intern over the summer for $500 a month. We had 2 applicants. One looked exactly like I do, white guy, was in SAMI as a sorority, as a fraternity in a university, and the other person was a female, Asian, really smart. So we went with diversity. And Lulu joined us, and Lulu was our first intern. And Alec, we said, really sorry, we can only afford $500, so can't bring you on. And I tell the story because Alec came back 3 weeks later that summer and said, I hate my job, I'll work for free. So free works really nicely for startups. And Alec joined for free. And we ended up working with both Alec and Lulu, and we used the money to hire a design firm to build our logo and our first screens, and to hire our first developer, because we needed to build this product. As I said earlier, the first experiment was, can we prove that someone out there wants to use this idea? And that was the 2 hotels. Then when we raised the money, the next experiment was, we're going to actually build it, and we're going to find one person who's going to pay for it. And that was the pitch. Long term, we're going to try and build this massive company, and here's these revenues that are going like this, up to this, and the investors need to see that, and then they divide by 3, and it's all these ridiculous models. And our first spreadsheet was ridiculous. It said we'd be in 3,000 hotels 3 years ago. Today we're in 500. So, and we're doing way better than our spreadsheet said. So the spreadsheets are nothing. Really, it's the experiment. The real experiment, because we build something that one person will pay for.
And in terms of Alec, we mentioned he agreed to work with us for free while he was going back to school, and he worked with us for a year. When he graduated, we raised money. We hired him. He's still with us. He's grown professionally 10x what he would at any company, and he's grown with us from 3 people to now 70. And he's flown all over the world. He's dealt with issues that I think nobody at his age has ever. So it's really awesome to be able to really kind of see that and to grow with people. But what he had was passion and the desire to do something. Startups are really hard. And if you're a founder, you have to get somebody that is as interested in the ride as they are in the outcome. And the people interested in the ride will not be thinking about the dollars. They will find a way to fund themselves so that they can work with you on this thing. And if they can't, then they're not the right person. Yeah. So I think until you can get people to follow you on the journey without paying, you shouldn't pay. Now, what you may pay for is, like what the guys did with me is, I was in tech for over 10 years, built various teams and knew how to get things done. I was vetted through multiple communities that they knew, right? So I wasn't just like a random with a good resume. You'd actually want somebody like that who can actually tell you what it is and who you can trust. But beyond that, everyone else should be like passionate.
Yeah, I just got a question on towards the, so whenever you talk about like paying other people, when do you guys as founders decide that you've made enough money as a company to pay yourself?
That's a really good question. Look, everyone's in a different situation, and it's okay to pay yourselves. In fact, it's not a real business if you're not paying yourself, so at some point you need to, because otherwise all your costs are completely fake. We paid Dimitri from day one. Dimitri had a wife and a child. I paid myself enough to legally support my visa, and then all the dollars I made, I funneled back into the company under the covers. Justin didn't take any salary for 2 years because he didn't need to. So it's all really hard to answer. There's no rule to it, but there's no problem taking money. Except when I saw a friend raise money, they raised 300,000, and the CEO was taking 170, and he was taking 80. So you're going to be out of money in a year. What's the point of raising money? You're just raising money to pay yourselves. That is not the model. Pay as little as you can so you can afford your rent. Right? Your investor base will know that you're taking way under to work for it, but they also they recognize the human problem when you have to live in New York City.
And I think one kind of unspoken part about starting companies is for the first 2 years, it's just a ton of special situations. You're hiring people because you know somebody who knows somebody. It's a family friend. It's somebody that you met out. It is not a recruiter. It is not a job post. Lulu, we did meet. Now Lulu, we met at Uncubed, and Alec, one of our co-founders' mom met his mom on a train. And it's funny, but every single person that we brought in for the first 20 people were these kinds of weird special situations, and actually that fact becomes very unspecial at that point. What was special was somebody found our job posting online and they applied, and that didn't happen until we had 20 people. Right? Every single person was brought in by somebody. So if you're looking to start a company, you just have to meet a lot of people and be super talkative about it. And by the way, just quick advice, don't hide your idea. This is something that I used to do a lot, and I see a lot of first-time founders doing. They smother their idea. They don't want to talk
an NDA.
It's here's an throw the word NDA out of your mind. No reasonable investor would ever talk to you after you ask them for an NDA. It means you have no idea how this thing works. And beyond that, though, it's not only the NDA with investors. Literally talk to every single person about your idea who will listen to you, because no one's going to steal it. If you know what it takes to start an idea, let's say you have an idea, I guarantee you nobody's going to steal it. Why? Because first you have to get people to follow you. Then you have to raise money. And even if you do raise money, you have a 95% chance of failure. So even if somebody does steal your idea, they might fail in a year. Now, okay, you raise some money and you get 10 people behind you. Now you got to sell it to somebody, right? Somebody actually has to figure out how to get the message out, not even to 10 people. Then you have to figure out how to hire salespeople and have salespeople sell your idea. Then you got to figure out how to hire developers and have them. And then, by the way, you got to raise money again. And only then you have an 80% chance of failure, not 95. If you look at the stats, the amount of risk that there is to take an idea from ideation into success, I mean, you have like a 98% chance of failure or 95% chance of failure. So, but what is your likelihood of finding special situations? Way, way higher. So that's why I say talk to every single person, and the best thing that can happen is someone's like, oh my God, my cousin wants to work on the same thing, you should talk to him, right? Or look, oh, that's really cool, you know?
So we're about to get kicked off, I feel, in like
No.
20.
Yeah.
We probably haven't helped a single person in this room yet. So
I know.
we'll end with our own rules of starting a company, but are you starting a company? Is that why you asked?
Oh, no, I was just wondering what point you decided to pay yourselves.
Yeah.
With that.
Makes sense. I think for us, look, we raised the first 500. We designed the product in March. We launched it in October, and it was terrible. And you should always release products you're not proud of, because if you're proud of it, you've probably released way too late. Because ultimately, your user's going to tell you what you've built and how they're going to use it. You can't define that. And we learned that the hard way, and I guess the good one and the hard way. We released a guest app, and the staff looked around and said, there's 85-year-olds only in this hotel, no one will download this, but do you mind if I download it myself and I enter a request for them, because right now I'm writing it on a piece of paper and I always forget. And so the staff started using the guest app, pretending they were the guest. And that's what made us really realize staff needed the problem or the solution much more than guests. And so that night we called Vlad, and we said, Vlad, we need you to build a button on the back end so that a staff member can put in a request from the computer, because no guests are using this yet. And that button that adds internal requests is now 99% of our business, and our business is now it's about 1,800 hotels.
No, from my end, there's so much stuff out there that you can learn just by going online. Oh my God, I wish like I started now. I mean, if you guys don't know, like Y Combinator, Sam Altman has this series called Startup School, where he has 20 founders from Dropbox, Airbnb come in and talk about how they started a company. Paul Graham has an amazing blog where he even talks about how to get startup ideas, but he's just a brilliant guy. He's founder of Y Combinator. Reid Hoffman, who started LinkedIn, has a class in Stanford publicly available called Blitz Scaling, where he talks from going from 0 people up to thousands of people, and his guest lecturers are Eric Schmidt, Marissa Mayer, the founders of Airbnb. And like, I mean, it's incredible. And all this stuff, like right now, if you go home, that's all there. So like, if I was to start a company like right now, one, I'd spend just a sabbatical watching and learning and just downloading context. And then I would try to think, well, what can't I get from these videos?
You know you're fully vested, you're welcome to start your own company at any point.
See you guys later. So like, it's once you know as much as possible, like what can't you get from a video? What do you guys think? What can't you get from a video? Answers, right? Like you can ask the video a question and the video will not give you answers. So you need to get as many questions as possible, just write them down, and then try to find friends that are entrepreneurs and ask them questions and engage. Learn more, watch more stuff. Talk, watch, because that's how you like really build the context. It's weird, but startups at this point, they're like a language. And you just have to learn it. You could watch Silicon Valley, and weirdly, like almost everything in Silicon Valley is actually true. Like I've probably experienced 90% of everything that happens in a weird way, or a friend of mine has experienced it. Like the writer of Silicon Valley, Sid Costello, who ran Twitter, like they know what's happening, and all that stuff's out there. So just go out, watch some stuff, talk to some people, and then just rinse and repeat until you get inspired, and you go from there.
Any other question? Okay, so I may as well show you what Alice is, because that's our baby. So Alice is an operations platform. Well, what does that mean? Well, most of our users are staff, and there's a staff login on the top right, and so it's all cloud-based. And most of our hotels, when we go in, they're either using radios, pen and paper, or they're using 5 to 10 different systems. So what I mean by that is, before Alice, what would happen is housekeeper thought that they needed a housekeeping solution. So an old housekeeper would start a housekeeping app. And then concierge felt they needed a concierge technology, so concierge started a concierge app, and someone maintenance and so on and so forth. And you ended up having 5 or 10 different systems running a hotel, and all of them were completely isolated. So if you're a concierge, you're working on a concierge software called Go Concierge, and you're not connected to anything else. And so no one ever stepped back and said, is that really how you should use technology? If all of you in the room needed to work together on a project, would it really help to have social entrepreneurship separate from lonely health tech overhead? And the answer would be no. You'd never build technology for all of you in the room to work on whatever I needed and all of you to be on a separate system. And so when we stepped back, we said, how do you build for that? And we started looking at Salesforce and Uber and Netflix and all these companies, and we figured out, how do you actually digitalize service delivery? How do you allow for all the communication to happen in one central place? And we started building Alice as a backend tool. And so if I'm a staff member, I have a login, and I can either access Alice through web or through mobile, because some of your staff are running around and some are on web. So our biggest competitor today is really the radio. And I know it's a condensed screen, so I'll zoom out. And I'll move into my demo property. But effectively, this is the bulk of Alice. It's a back-end task management system through which you can manage every single request that's happening in the hotel. Okay, so on the left, you look at a calendar. That's how a staff will manage their work. Has anyone heard of Slack? So a lot of people will say to us, well, why don't they just use Slack? Slack, anyone you know what GChat is? Google Chat? Everyone knows what chat is, right? So Slack is the fastest growing $1 billion company ever made. In 8 months, they grew to $1 billion in value, and what they do is they allow teams to communicate with each other through messaging. And we use Slack internally. The difference between a hotel and an enterprise and Alice is that no one picks up where I leave off. I don't go home at night and someone else comes and takes my job, and then I'll come in 12 hours later and take theirs. And so Slack or GChat or messaging works really nicely when you don't have shifts and permissions. And when you have shifts, you can't come in and read through hundreds of messages to figure out what you do. And so that's why Alice is really a workflow system over a communication system. So if a guest comes in and says, I'd like a dinner reservation, the staff is going to look up that guest against the property. The staff is going to look up that guest and track the fact that they're making a dinner reservation. Because this guest might be staying with you over Christmas, and you may no longer be at the hotel over Christmas, or you might not be on shift when the guest comes back up to the concierge again and asks, what time is my dinner reservation, or can I move it? So if I'm a staff member, I need to track the fact that I'm doing the work. I need to let the hotel know which restaurant I booked at, and ultimately how many people are in the party, and then you have what is the state of the request. So in Alice, each single service can have its complete own workflow, and that is why we're the first system on the market that allows you to work between departments. Because in concierge, and if you've booked a dinner reservation, it's really easy to imagine what to do, right? A guest asks for a dinner reservation, exactly 30 days before, and at exactly 9 a.m. you need to call ABC Kitchen or you will not get the reservation. And then a day before you're going to print the confirmation, and the day of they're going to eat, and the day after it's going to be closed. So that has a workflow that we can build into the hotel to ensure they do the work in the right amount of time. Fixing a toilet is very different. The problem is stated, you're fixing it, it's fixed. And so by building different workflows in for each service, our system's able to understand the different nuances of operations, and then we can start optimizing it.
So just quick note here, we knew none of this 4.5 years ago. Like none, zero. I had no idea, even if somebody told me what are the departments of the hotel, I would not be able to tell you. You have to be a really quick study, and you just get in there and you ask a lot of questions, you become hyper curious. How does that work? How does that work? Why do you do that? Well, when do you do that? And when do you not do that? Who does that for you? Who doesn't do that? Like, when do you get fired? When do you get a raise, etc.? You just become really, really curious. And after you become curious, you come up with some ideas, and then you put them out there, and then you're wrong, and then people tell you why you suck, and then you're like, okay, let me try again. You come back, you build it again, and eventually you actually become an expert. So 4.5 years ago, we knew nothing. Alex is speaking at almost every concierge conference and hospitality conference telling people how to run their business. Just because we got super curious and we came out as outsiders, and we didn't have any preconceived biases. We're just like, okay, well, you tell me. I don't know, that sounds weird. Why would you do that? And sometimes people are like, I don't know. The way it's always been done. Well, can you do this other way? Maybe. And that's when you start doing it. So it's actually good to be an outsider as long as you're curious. And then you learn this stuff.
And a good point to Dimitri earlier about building the solution and it coming, it's there telling you how to use it is up here. So I've gone ahead and put the dinner reservation in. It's at 6:30. A month before, whoever's on shift will see the reminder I set, and they will know to book the reservation, which is here. So whoever's on shift at 10 a.m., they're going to see I need to book it. They can change the contact and they can coordinate within the team. And then we started building and expanding the solution. So you'll see SMS up here. When we first started, we started building apps. Everyone needs apps and apps and apps and apps, and everyone thought they needed them, and hundreds of people started building apps. And there's an app for this and an app for that. And then all the data started turning extremely negative, because how many apps do you really use on a day-to-day basis? Most of you probably use between 3 to 4. And how many times do you visit a hotel each year? The same one, twice. So airlines were able to deliver apps to consumers that you use, but hotels, no one would download them. And now, the biggest growing field in the guest side of the hotel is SMS. So it's funny to us because we've almost taken 10 steps back in terms of technology strength to find actually how to improve the guest experience, which is just through SMS. Because all of you have that on your phone. So straight away I can text any of you immediately and can start providing you a level of service that I couldn't before. Can I take a volunteer? Who has a phone number that I can text? Go ahead.
417-771-6240.
So immediately you don't need to download anything for me to be able to text you. I can go, and by the way, the hotel's pulling this from your reservation. This is just a demo hotel. But let's say your room's not ready. Instead of waiting in the lobby, you've traveled all the way to New York, go enjoy the city, we'll text you when your room's ready. And so I can send you a message, you'll receive it on your phone, and you can start texting back. And the beauty of it is, as I'm doing this, I can see all the other requests you have on the right, all your tickets. I can see the dinner reservations I put in, I can see the complaints you're making, I can see the packages you've tracked for us. And so as we've started adding more and more features, this is what's allowed us to run the entire hotel. From logbooks where we're tracking packages, no different to how a residential building would, to lost and found, to reporting and our ability to understand what are we booking, what are we doing, and ultimately, this is the value of ours. To understand what's happening on operation. Did you get the text? Oh yeah? Let me check that. And so ultimately, what we're trying to do is figure out how do we build tools that will help a hotel analyze the work they're doing. Yet today, as strange as it sounds to us, not a single person really uses reports well. No managers do it. And so we're building this massive database that will one day predict how to run a hotel, yet ultimately no one really uses it like that today, because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you're a user, all you care about is the work you need to do. And so you're going to get the job, and you're going to do the next job, and the next job, and one day reporting will be the biggest field of ours. But we haven't even got to that stage yet.
There's something like subtly, just brutally honest there. We were super excited about building the reports. We brought a lot of people with backgrounds in analytics, and we spent a lot of time thinking, how do we make them nice and interactive? And the truth is, when you're doing a job, you don't care about reports. You care about what you have to do next. And we were thinking about how cool it is for us and how cool it could be, but we weren't thinking about what we're going to make better for the people that we're serving. There's a really great book that came out recently called Competing Against Luck. Clayton Christensen, who wrote The Innovator's Dilemma, and he talks about basically products are there to be hired to do jobs for people. And if you don't know which job you're being hired for, you're not going to be hired. And so...
You got the text.
Oh, nice, okay. So we didn't have a good job for the different reports, right? We just said we're going to build some stuff, and it didn't work out. So we stopped building it, and that's the other thing. You have to have the maturity to say, we're going to stop. We're not going to keep pounding the pavement and forcing you to do this thing. And eventually, maybe it'll come back. But there's a ton of stuff in here in the app that you saw that we haven't touched in 2 or 3 years because we just didn't get the love that we wanted. We had to let go.
So, yeah,
What's the story behind the name?
Alice,
Yeah.
have you ever seen the Brady Bunch? Alice was the housekeeper for the Brady Bunch family. So we wanted to humanize it. Alfred from Batman was taken, and Alice was next. And then the minute we were sitting around looking at names, and the minute Alice, I swear to God, the person next to me said a life-improving concierge experience. So, yeah, that sounds great, that works. And so we picked Alice. We dropped the acronym now, because no one has the time to say a life-improving customer experience. But Alice has stayed and has been part of that branding, and we have all of our conference rooms are named after the kids in the Brady Bunch family, and it's just become a bit of our identity.
Alex never saw the Brady Bunch. Because he's British and it just didn't make sense to them.
Any idea where else this can be applied? If you've thought about the structures we just did, package tracking, lost and found, maintenance, what other businesses can you apply it to? Did anyone here live with the doorman building? So you probably use a system already to track your packages. This school probably has maintenance staff, could use it. Hospitals, assisted living, home healthcare. Every business is turning into the hospitality business. Everyone is trying to provide a service on top of the offering. If you look at the new WeWork and the workspace concept, if you look at new office spaces, if you look at modern hospitals, airports, ultimately, while our idea today is to build it for hotels, we've already started experimenting in all these different arenas. We have about 100 residential buildings in New York. We work with Night House Workspace. We work with assisted living. So as we're building this, we're always keeping an eye out for how do we make this into a massive company one day. And that's going to be not only the ability to own the hotel operation space, but can we take those operations and apply it to all the different industries that want to model themselves after a service?
And look, you look at this thing and it's probably not something that you can explain to your grandma. I tried, and every other week she's like, what do you do again? But it's something that makes a ton of sense to a lot of people that do this every single day. And a lot of great businesses are specifically that. They may not be the glitziest, they may not include VR and AI and natural language processing, but they solve a legitimate problem for people that are willing to pay for you to solve it. And that's a B2B startup, and B2C startups, like consumer startups, are sexy, and it's really cool, and they have a massive, massive fail rate. And a lot of people that start in consumer companies eventually pivot towards business companies, because you actually get paid for something that you do, and you add value practically. So this is an example. I'm sure there's hundreds of industries that you can think of. You get to know the industry, I'm sure you can build 10 companies after you get to know the industry, because especially go to the unsexy industries, the place that no one's looking.
You have a question? Real estate?
Yeah, I suspect you're selling this either to the CEO or the chief operations manager of the hotel.
Yeah.
If so, what's the cost benefit analysis? How do you convince them to buy this?
Great question. Sales. Just if you want to make a product that will be used by businesses, you're probably not thinking about sales. You're probably thinking about the product and maybe like what impact it can do. But ultimately, sales at the end of the day is the only reason you survive. So learning about sales as soon as possible and who is going to buy, whether it's the head or not, is really important.
I think the question is, what's the ROI of Alice?
Right. So, but like the sales on the ROI is, it's an understood product right now that is being purchased in 3 different ways by 3 separate products. And our ROI is you need to just buy 1 product instead of 3 products. So they've already convinced themselves that they need the 3 separate products. They need messaging, they need the concierge tool, they need something for housekeeping, and the ROI is you now train your staff on 1 thing instead of 3.
But we're starting to learn, every hotel in the world should buy Alice. And I don't say that because I'm biased, I am hugely biased, to take that as for granted. We do something that 4 companies do. So go buy 4 companies or go buy Alice, which one's easier for you? Alice. But what we're starting to realize is, unfortunately, that doesn't matter because no one buys because of what I just said. Ultimately, consumers are not rational. You are not rational. You don't buy something often because it makes sense. You buy something because you feel you want to buy it. And so ultimately, you have to actually, and that's what branding is. And that's why if anyone here, who here is an Apple user, iPhone user? Okay, great. Who here has a Dell laptop? Okay, if Dell built a car, would you buy it?
No,
Why not?
because Dell makes computers.
Okay, but if Apple built a car, would you buy it?
No.
Really?
Probably.
Electronic.
Hands up if you'd buy a car if Apple built it. Okay, more, and hands up if you'd buy a car if Dell built it. One Dell car, okay. Point being is, Apple has built this purpose-driven brand. Like, people aspire to be Apple users, Apple drivers, Apple everything, because they're not just selling technology, they're selling a brand. And Dell haven't quite figured that out yet, and they're still trying to figure that out. And so we're not just selling software that makes financial sense. We need to sell Alice and figure out what the emotional appeal behind buying our software is. Is it that you're going to sleep easier at night? Is it that you can take a holiday as a general manager? Because for the first time, when you're on holiday and there's a crisis going on, you can log in and find out what's happening, right? You have to find all the different emotional appeals to appeal to that consumer. Otherwise, at the end of the day, you're always going to be competing for dollars, and competing for dollars is always a downward spiral, because someone's always going to come and do it cheaper and faster than you. And someone will come cheaper and faster than that person because they can look at your technology, figure out what you did in 3 years, and do it in 3 months. Yeah.
So are you also, you're not yet selling a management tool to the manager of the hotel?
So we don't sell it separately as a management tool. We sell it as a functional tool. That's exactly correct. We sell Alice Guest, Alice Staff, Alice Concierge. We don't yet sell Alice Manager.
But you